AITA. Am I the a-hole? I offered to pay for my kids' educations as long as they agreed to my conditions. Now one of my kids owes over $50,000 and is mad at me. I have twin sons. 4 years ago, shortly before they graduated from high school, I sat them down and told them that I'm more than happy to completely pay for their education so they wouldn't need to take out loans. However, I let them know that my financial support was conditional. In order to get my financial support, my sons had to agree to the following. 1. They could not join a fraternity, except for professional fraternities. 2. They could not drink before age 21 or do drugs of any sort. 3. They had to maintain a 3.25 GPA and send me their transcripts every semester so I could verify this. 4. They could not go party more than once a month. I imposed these conditions because I often drank to excess myself in college. I needed 3 extra semesters to graduate due to failing quite a few classes. One of my sons, E, was a huge partier in high school. He told me that my conditions were too harsh and prevented him from having an authentic college experience, whatever that meant. He chose to take out loans to attend a state school. My other son, J, is the quieter and more studious of the two. He agreed to my conditions and I paid for his education at an Ivy League school. Both E and J have been living at home ever since the pandemic started and caused schools to move online. E graduated with a degree in creative writing and a 2.95 GPA while J graduated with a degree in computer science and a 3.9 GPA. Things came to a head last night at dinner. J announced that he had a job offer from Apple. I was about to grab a bottle of wine to celebrate his success when I noticed E looking glum. I asked him what was wrong and he said that it wasn't fair how his brother had his education completely paid for and a 6-figure job right after graduation while he was tens of thousands of dollars in debt and only had an offer from a temp agency. I reminded E that he could have had his education completely paid for as well and pointed out that J's Apple offer was a function of his GPA and choice of degree. He knew he couldn't argue with me on the facts and stormed upstairs. NTA, not the a-hole. However, I find your restrictions quite harsh. I understand limiting a bit, however, one party a month. If they maintain their GPA, would it hurt to go to one a couple times a month? YTA, you're the a-hole. You said you took an extra 3 semesters because of failing classes, but it looks like you learned a few valuable lessons from that and everything turned out great. He seems like he takes after you and maybe that extra time could have helped him figure out what he wanted, or learn that he could be in something more lucrative. Trying to prevent people from making the same mistakes as you can backfire. Sometimes they need the lessons that come with the mistakes. I told you so are only valuable if they are likely to be in that situation again, otherwise actual help is way more useful. What are you expecting him to do, go back in time and change his mind? People's brains keep developing until 25, and it sounds like one of your kids is realizing their mistakes, hopefully, but can't do anything about it. Are you willing to help E get another degree assuming he applies himself? So let me get this straight, one of your kids is social through high school and then you ask him to stop being so when he moves away, otherwise you won't pay for his college. He didn't take your money because he knew that at least one of your conditions was unreasonable/unrealistic. You have to give him some credit for that. Soft YTA, you're the a-hole here because although it is your money, you could have talked to him about the mistakes you made and attached more reasonable strings to his tuition payments, i.e. I only pay for 8 semesters worth of classes, only the ones you pass. You need to maintain a 3.25 for me to continue paying. Don't get a degree in underwater basket weaving/creative writing, etc. Edited. Sorry to all the creative writing and fine arts majors out there. I wrongly relied on anecdotal evidence of a few friends struggling to find career stability and opportunities with these particular undergraduate degrees when there are so many factors at play. FWIW, 17-year-old me thought it might be fun to get a history degree from a private college that would accept a limited amount of my AP coursework. My parents declined to pay $200,000 for that, and I don't fault them for a second, because it would not have been a career/goal-oriented academic pursuit. As one poster pointed out below, planning is important. In a perfect world, parents and mentors would maintain an open dialogue about what career opportunities and ROI kids can expect from particular degrees at particular schools, or if a bachelor's degree is even right for them / the path they want to pursue. YTA. I think it is completely fair to have rules, but you set rules that you knew one of your sons couldn't achieve. Your rules were basically unenforceable, at least the ones around partying, and discouraged one of your kids from asking for help. College is a time to learn your boundaries and learn what you can and can't do. For instance, it sounds like you learned from partying that wasn't a sustainable lifestyle for you. The point of encouraging your children to get a higher education is to give them a leg up and help them start their life on the right footing, not to impose your values on your children. Your son will have had to live with the consequences of his grades and choice of major. That should be the impact/punishment, not him starting his life deeply in debt for an education you could have paid for. My parents had rules around higher education too. They would pay unless we received a C or less in a class, in which case we had to pay them back. It was good incentive to keep my GPA up. Plenty of people have good degrees and good GPAs and also party while in college. The two are not mutually exclusive, and my parents didn't need to helicopter over my every move. They let me make dumb mistakes and learn for myself, which you didn't give your kids the opportunity to do. You obviously favor your more studious son. You need to think long and hard about the relationship you want to have with your children. Does their value lay solely in their academic performance and career? That's the message that you're sending loud and clear right now. NaH, no a-holes here. It's your money and you can do what you want with it. I think that your rules were quite harsh, given that you know your sons are very different and one would struggle with your rules. I think that just like your son has consequences of his choices, there will be consequences for you in the quality of relationship you have with your son as a result of your choices. YTA for being such a ridiculously controlling parent. While your son who didn't get help might feel badly right now, I'm sure he'll fare better as life goes on, having learned to rely on himself, and having authentic experiences in college that aid adult development. Trying to protect your children from the world, even when they're not living with you, and making your financial support contingent upon following those rules is stifling, and will produce children dependent on you, not themselves. Though, judging by your post and the rules you imposed on your children, that's exactly what you hoped. YTA. I get where you're coming from, and I 100% agree with the GPA rule. But why impose additional restrictions on partying and drinking? If your son is able to maintain his grades while also going out and having fun with his friends, why do you care? Your reasoning is because you failed classes, but I would argue that learning to balance your responsibilities and social life is an extremely important part of becoming an adult. It's also hypocritical to expect your children not to drink or party while in college when you obviously got to enjoy those things. If your son has good grades, you should pay off his debt for him since you paid for your other kids' expenses. Edit, I didn't read what his resulting GPA was, but it's not that horrible and he had no reason to strive to meet your goals anymore. Still think OP is a hole. YTA between your ridiculous controlling rules and your replies to comments about your son, it's pretty clear you've never had much, if any, respect for E. Regardless of what you think about his grades, he did well enough in school to get accepted into a college right out of high school, regardless of its lack of prestige vs Ivy League. I get the feeling that your obvious favoritism for Jay is something he has resented for years and you just choose to act like his anger right now is solely attributable to the debt. NTA. You had clear terms and he rejected them. That was his choice. Having your whole education paid for by a parent is a huge privilege, and he should have taken advantage of it. Many people pay their way through college, myself included, and most of them would do anything to be in the position you offered him. AITA. You didn't pick his major, nor did you give him his 2.95 GPA. Everyone here calling you an A sound exactly like the type of people who picks parties over a free ride through college. YTA for imposing unfair rules you knew one son wouldn't agree to. I also think it's bullshit that he's starting his life so far in debt, when you could have paid for him go to college, but you decided instead to be a hypocrite and impose rules you obviously didn't adhere to in college. YTA. I agree with some of your points, honestly, I do. Mandating a high GPA makes sense. But by telling them they can't drink or party, you effectively ask them to not make friends and to miss out on one of the big parts of college. Yeah, drinking to excess is dumb, but, if you just mandated the high GPA, you could have easily made sure them remained responsible for themselves and their learning, while not telling them they can't have any fun. What is this BS comments section? You offered to flat out pay for college on the condition that your sons follow a few easy rules? And TA, not the a-holy at all. That's an amazing deal. You could have kicked them out after high school graduation and said sink or swim, that would have been a jerk move. Your son made his bed, now he can lie in it. The entitlement of some people, I swear TG. And TA fraternity life is shoot. Protection for your kids. No drugs also good stay focused on studies. Maintains high GPA. I kind of agree with this. A little lax might be needed if they are having a hard time, but I agree otherwise. Party once a month. I mean, kids will be kids. Nice to have a little fun. Your children sound like they mean well. But the one who didn't go needs to wake up. The point of college is to further an education. The experience is overrated and stupid IMO. If you paying 50,000 for school, you have a say in what happens and to not waste money. For sure. NTA. YTA. You essentially imposed a $50,000 consequence on your kid before he did anything wrong, and created a self-fulfilling prophecy that will now define his whole life. All because you were a fuck up in college. And yet you overcame that and turned out okay anyhow, so why even take it out on him to start with? What a mess. It was all about you, at any rate, not him, and now he has to carry the burden. Yeah, he made the choice, but he was still a kid and you should have been a better parent and helped him instead of setting him up to fail because you were hung up on how shooty you were as a kid. And TAE is mad, but hopefully he'll understand it was his own life choices that led him here. Also, are you looking to adopt? And TA, your son is an adult and needs to learn that you have to live with the choices you make. While maybe some will say your conditions were harsh, it's still your money, and a lot of it, and you're well within rights to set said conditions to ensure it isn't wasted. Sucks for E, but that is 100% on him. And TA, having your college fully paid for is a privilege. So many people don't even have this on the table. It's your money, so your rules. Seeing your child regret their choices is difficult. But it's the only way to learn sometimes. Express sympathy to E. And if he will allow, offer advice on how to dig himself out of the hole he dug. You can still have a relationship with him, but don't be patronizing and rub his face in his mistakes. Be proud he knew himself well enough to know he couldn't follow your rules and made it through college on his own path, even if it's not the one you wanted for him. NAH, no a-holes here. I do think some of your rules are a bit harsh, but it's your money and your decision to fund your son's education. Like fair play to E for not agreeing to your rules and going behind your back. While I understand his feelings about being in debt compared to his brother, he had the same option of having his education paid for and chose not to. Also, the fact that his brother has a better job offer than he does has nothing to do with you funding his education. He earned that job offer himself.